Alhamdulillah. Wow.
Um, Also, one thing that about the pandemic is that like a lot of mosques and a lot of Islamic institutions, there was such a focus about everything going online.
Sure, sure.
I have social anxiety, so like I'm very, very nervous about just going up to this random stranger and being like, "So tell me about your religion."
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I
so
understand.
yeah, so I was able to like see a khutbah
Yes.
and see people actually like speak about this because so much of it went online. And
Yeah, yeah, and you can see so much more online. You don't have to deal with the social anxiety bit
yeah,
and the crowds of people.
because it just turns into chatter eventually, and I don't learn. But like through that medium and everything, like the imam here, like he started doing hadith and khutbah online, and I'm like, thank God for this man. Like he's in like the local community and
Sure,
everything.
sure. That's wonderful. What is your
So
local masjid that you're talking about? Just out of
it's
curiosity.
Greater Springfield or Islamic Society of Greater Springfield.
Oh, okay.
So
Oh,
yeah,
alhamdulillah. Wow.
yeah.
Well, that's amazing. I feel like the pandemic for me was just a blessing because I could go to multiple classes at the same time. I didn't have to drive all over the place. And and you could access I could access all that information, and then a lot of times it was recorded so you can go back and listen to it
Yeah.
again and again. So I mean there were some blessings in the pandemic.
It was the first half of half of the pandemic is one of the lowest points in my life, but it ultimately led to Islam. And it was like as soon as I started looking, not even when I reverted, but when I started looking seriously into Islam, my life just started getting better.
Sure, sure.
And even if my material conditions aren't that different, my attitude is.
Yes, that makes a
My
difference.
anxiety is, just Allah will take care of it.
Alhamdulillah.
I'll make dua instead of freaking out over
Yes.
something, and just my ability to cope with life in general. I'm more extroverted. I used to be so incredibly, like overly introverted. And now I'm like, hey, new person, tell me your life story because I love you.
Yes,
But I
alhamdulillah.
love you.
Yeah, no,
And
that makes sense. It's just I don't know, there's an openness and a difference after you become a Muslim. So yeah, I mean, here I am on a podcast and I'm an introvert. So what can I say?
yeah.
So it does make a difference in your life. And what about you? Did you notice any changes? Like I felt like I became more forgiving. Like there were a lot of people that hurt me in the past, and I was able to finally forgive when I couldn't in the past forgive them.
Forgiveness has been a big one because they're like, if I can forgive myself for certain things that I did pre-Islam, and I was like, I'm glad my sins are forgiven when I took Shahada because,
yes, me too.
If I can forgive myself for some things, like why couldn't I forgive other people?
Yes.
And granting other people the grace that I would want extended to me, and it's helped me grow as a person. I'm gentler. I used to say that like I'm a pineapple.
Yeah,
like I'm spiky and hard on the outside, but I'm like soft and sweet on the inside. And I'm like, let's try and work on the hardness on the outside. So Islam has allowed me to kind of become more vulnerable, which is something that I've always hated.
Yeah, it's hard to do because there's that fear of getting hurt and getting rejected, and the trauma of having that you've been through, most likely, especially when you have complex post-traumatic stress disorder. There are things that you're doing that you don't even realize. Like it took me till this year to realize that my people pleasing was really just a trauma response. I didn't know that. It just didn't occur to me. Oh, okay, now that makes sense. Because
am I doing this because I want to, or am I doing this out of fear?
Yeah, exactly. Am I doing this because I'm trying to make someone else happy, but my heart's like I'm panicking on the inside because I'm trying to like mitigate. And it's because, growing up in a narcissistic family dynamic that I grew up in, I was the scapegoat. Yeah. And so it was always my job to prevent arguments, to prevent people from getting angry. And so then the response was the people pleasing. If I do this, then the trauma stuff won't happen.
And it would go one of two ways. Either I would be out there trying to help everyone else at my own detriment, or I would get very cold and callous. And I think it's referred to as reactive abuse.
Yes.
Where, you're used to these behaviors and everything. So you're like, well, if they're hurting me, why shouldn't I blah, 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 blah.
Yes.
And I don't like that in other people, and I hated it in myself. So
sure.
It was like that pineapple type thing that I was talking about. And I'm in therapy. The only thing about the wider Muslim community that I've kind of like actually been vocal about is a lot of the attitude regarding mental health and addiction.
Yes.
It was like, you can pray more and see a therapist.
Sure, of course.
At the same time.
You can. There's nothing wrong with seeing a therapist. Alhamdulillah.
So I'm pretty like, people are like, well, you shouldn't talk about that stuff. And I'm like, why? Like, and I'm like, I don't care if you're a man or a woman. Like, I don't care any of that. If you struggle with mental health or addiction, been there, done that, you can come talk to me.
It's important to talk to someone. It helps you kind of get an idea of, what those healthy patterns are, because you don't know what you don't know. And how are you going to learn something if you just don't know? Like, you don't even sometimes know enough to even ask the right question to get to that information. Someone who's trained in mental health issues can actually help you ask the right questions and help you understand and see some of the things that you can't see because you're stuck in it. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I definitely used a lot of counseling, and alhamdulillah, it was a great benefit to me. I look at it as tying your camel in a way, right?
Yeah.
You're supposed to tie a camel.
I like that one. It was like, Allah will protect you, but if you don't tie your camel and it gets stolen or wanders off, it was like, that's not Allah, that's stupidity. It was like, thank you for the reminder, because sometimes I'm like, I want a better job and Allah will give me a better job, but I'm not going to apply to any. Oh. Like, no, you have to apply to the job to be able to get the job.
You have to do that part. Yeah, that's the I used to tell a joke to my patients in the hospital about that, which the gist of the joke was, astaghfirullah, we don't gamble, but there was a man who he's like, I have a lot of faith and I believe I'm going to win the lottery. If I just pray real hard, I'm going to win the lottery. So the lottery would come and he didn't win. And then, he did it a second time. Oh, I have a lot of faith. I'm going to win the lottery. And the lottery came and he didn't win. And the third time, he did it again. And then God said to him, buy a ticket.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much. You got to buy the ticket.
Yeah. When I found out that, I was like, I'm just going to win. That's funny because when I was like really, really in between jobs and my bank account was getting kind of scary. Now when that happens, I pray more and my bank account gets less scary. But at first I was like, I'm going to get the lotto. And it was Mega Millions and everything. And I'm like, there's maybe no chance, whatever, but, might as well try. And I lost my lotto ticket like 10 minutes.
No.
Yeah, like 10 minutes before it was going to be announced. And I'm like, oh, that's annoying. And then whatever, not that big of a deal. And then later on in one of the Islamic groups that I was in, they're talking about how gambling is haram.
Oh, no.
And
so you just didn't know. You didn't know.
It was a love letter from Allah. So it was, I was meant to lose that lottery ticket. I almost, So
you didn't know. I mean, you didn't know that gambling was haram. So, I mean, it was easy mistake, I think.
So it was sort of like I inadvertently, avoided a sin that I didn't even know was a thing. So it was just,
alhamdulillah.
Yeah, it was just alhamdulillah. It was,
That's amazing.
Small little weird things like that keep happening, and I'm like,
yes.
It improves my deen. It kind of I can't think of the word, validates.
It validates, yeah,
It validates my reversion, and it's sort of like, when I am still, because like my mom, we talked about beforehand, my mom, she's been in and out of the hospital.
Yeah, of course, and that's difficult. Yeah.
So life isn't super. It's not as though I reverted to Islam and became a multimillionaire and now I have like 6 cars or anything. Like my car,
and your life is perfect and beautiful and wonderful. No, that's not what happened to me, at least. I don't know.
But the way I handle it is better.
Sure, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, and small little things like that. Islam gives me hope. So
that's beautiful. Yeah, it does. It gives me hope as well, and I'm more at peace than I was before, and less judgy. I strive to be less judgy, and I feel like I'm less judgy and I can practice patience more with others. Yes. I do have my moments. Family, of course, is the most trying, but
yeah, family's difficult.
They know your buttons. They know what buttons to push. SubhanAllah.
But I have also learned, because of Islam, to set boundaries.
Alhamdulillah, yes, boundaries.
That I didn't know, and now I'm able to just sit there and say, I'm not having this conversation. This conversation is leading in a direction that I do not feel comfortable with.
Sure.
I'm done with it and walking away.
Alhamdulillah, which is wonderful.
Yeah. And that's not something that I would do before. And, it's like, no, this is, I am not speaking to a person like this. You are not going to speak to me like.
Yeah, this is not. Yeah.
Talk to God in the same voice that you're talking to me. And if the answer is no.
Yeah, exactly. You have a choice you can make. They have a choice they can make, and you have a choice you can make.
Yeah. And it's actually like been very good for me. Like Islam, it was like Islam's
it's great. No, boundaries are wonderful. I mean, that's one of the things that I had that really, when I discovered there was these things called boundaries.
Yes,
it was amazing. I was like, okay, so yeah, these are my boundaries, and I said to my mom, these are my boundaries, and she's like, I don't believe in boundaries, and I'm like, well, that's you, but I still have my boundaries. And you get some pushback from people who are not used to you setting those boundaries.
Yeah, it's like disagreements don't have to be an argument.
No, not if you don't argue back and you leave.
And they don't like that. They want to follow behind, still arguing.
They do. I've had to lock myself in my room before. SubhanAllah. Just like, okay, I'm not arguing with you. I have to lock myself in my room and go out on the porch where I can't hear you. Because if you don't hear the insult, then you don't know what they said. Alhamdulillah,
Yeah. I used to do a lot of like, well, my family only communicates in passive aggressive behavior, so I have to be passive aggressive. And I'm like, no, don't acknowledge the passive aggressive behavior and don't engage in it. And go figure, they stopped being less passive aggressive as well.
Sure,
and it's like, wow, if you mirror good behavior, other people around you will inshallah,
yes,
will start mirroring that good behavior too. So
it's true. Our brains are meant to mirror that sort of behavior. So they have there's actually parts of the brain called the mirror neurons. So, that's always a good thing. And then, I mean, if you have those firm boundaries, they finally learn this is where her boundaries are. And, they learn to respect those boundaries, which are healthy. It's healthy to have boundaries. It really is. So, yeah, I think it's not going. There's something in the Quran about not going beyond your limits. I kind of feel like that's kind of a reference to boundaries.
And it's been kind of funny because there have been a few people that I've gotten close to that are raised Muslims, and they're like, reverts always are interesting to me. Because they look to the Quran for strength and inspiration, sometimes more so than people who were raised.
Alhamdulillah.
And I hadn't even thought about something like that. And I was like, there are a few surahs here and there, I go to that do bring me comfort, that do bring me peace. And I'm like,
sure.
it's like you mentioned, it was like that inner sense of peace is just like growing more. Like I don't feel as though I have to keep up appearances.
Sure.
I still like makeup.
Well, you can still like to look pretty. I mean, I
yeah,
still like to look
but
nice, but it's
I'm
not for
not
other
sitting
people.
there. Yeah, exactly.
No, it's for
like
you.
I'm like, are they? I'm no longer. It's like, well, my eyeliner is not perfect, and blah blah blah. And like Islam, especially like I mentioned beforehand, kind of being a tomboy. Femininity in Western circles usually involves taking clothes off.
Yes, I know. I hate that. I've always hated that.
Always made me very uncomfortable. Like if that's your path for empowerment, I'm not. I have my opinions, but you do you. But for myself, it was not empowering. I did not like it. And I guess I was just like, then I guess I'm not very feminine. Islam has also allowed me to really explore my feminism, wearing hijab, like, dressing more modestly and everything. And I still worry about clothes sometimes, but it's also allowed me to explore my femininity in a way that I'm actually enjoying.
Yes, because the other way, is objectifying.
Yeah.
Which I learned that from a very young age. That, I went to modeling school when I was a child. And when I was 12 years old, I quit because I was doing the model walk. And the guy says to me, you need to walk more sexy. And I looked at him and I said,
12.
I'm 12 years old. I don't do that. And I quit because I was like, that's crazy. But even as you grow older, the clothes that you see that they have little girls wear, even very young girls, very short, very revealing. It's just sort of this culture of objectifying people. And I'm not just going to say women because we do it to the men. I feel like it kind of was more for with the women at first, but I feel like in the spirit of being equal, now it's kind of everyone's just being objectified. This isn't a good thing.
No, with men, I will say with men though, it's I do have some hearing issues. I'm not deaf, but I have auditory processing issues.
Sure. Yeah, I'm aware.
So I read lips.
Yeah, sure.
And you're supposed to look away, you're supposed to lower your gaze. It was like, but to be able to understand you, like regardless of what language you're speaking, I need to be able to read your lips.
Yes.
And people think I'm like dead eye staring them, and I'm like, no, I'm not looking at your face. I'm looking.
You're just looking at the lips so you can help with the processing. I do the same thing. I look at people's mouths to help me understand what they're saying, and sometimes I have to repeat what they said in my head to understand what they're saying. And
do you also do like subtitles for movies and TV and stuff? Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I like subtitles because I can see what they're saying, and it's just easier to process the information. And I'm a speech language pathologist, so I work with a lot of kiddos who have auditory processing disorders, and even my kiddo, I feel like he might have some auditory processing issues because I'll say things to him, and he'll repeat back what he thought I said. And it's absolutely hilarious.
There have been, I do a lot of those like, hey, Val, can you put on a pot of coffee? What? Can you put on a pot of coffee? What? Can you put on I'll put on a cup of coffee. It's like I'm paying attention to you. It's just like my brain made the Windows shutdown noise and doesn't I need a reboot.
It feels to me like someone is talking like Charlie Brown's teacher. Like they talk to me and it's like,
I was like, I really want to know what you're saying, but if I don't look at you while I'm saying it to you, or while you're saying it to me, I'm not going to understand you.
Exactly. So
yeah. There's like little, and then I'm like, but is that lowering my gaze? Is that not lowering my gaze? He is kind of cute. Oh my God, what?
Oh no. I think what I heard was, recently, I think I saw something with Al Maghrib Institute. They were doing a thing on women's fiqh. And so they were doing a lot of like promotions on YouTube. And what he basically said was, you can look at someone, but if you're starting to like find them attractive, then lower your gaze, because there are situations where, you need to talk to your boss. You need to like talk to a coworker, you're not alone with this person. Right. And so it's okay to look at them for but if the minute you start feeling like, oh, he's really cute, then lower your gaze.
Yes, then it's lower your gaze.
Then it's lower your gaze and, maybe back out a little. I don't know. But I mean, I am so not an expert on that. That's just some things that I've heard here and there, because there are times I have to work with male patients and I have to look them in the face because they're deaf and hard of hearing. And they need to look at my lips to read them, to understand what I'm saying so they can get benefit from my therapy.
Yeah.
So, I think it's kind of a situational thing. So it's not like you're like hard staring at the whole time,
Yeah, like I'm not like staring into your soul or something.
Yeah, like for my kiddos who have autism, I have to teach them to do eye contact. But at the same time, I have to teach them to not stare at you, because that's really weird. They tend to take things to extreme sometimes. It's either I'm not looking at you or I'm staring at you.
Yeah. So. Oh, but what you were saying about children and objectifying and everything.
Sure.
My daughter, she just turned 7. Her birthday is September 2nd.
Alhamdulillah.
And she had, and I don't know where it came from, and I fought my ex over it all the time. Also, Islam got me a divorce lawyer, so
alhamdulillah. See, there's so many wonderful things that Islam did for you.
Yeah, I was a stay-at-home parent. I had no money. It was like,
of course.
I would not have. I got a lot of donations during Eid al-Adha specifically.
Yeah, sure. Getting a divorce is expensive.
Yes, in America, like
it is. The lawyers are not cheap.
No, so, and I'm winning so far.
Alhamdulillah.
That's there's wonderful. No an emergency custody in order place for my children.
So you're able to have your children back? Oh, that's wonderful. Alhamdulillah.
Saying was like, no, a medical crisis does not indicate poor parenting. It was a medical crisis.
Exactly.
But with my daughter, she's 7. Just turned 7, so she's 6 running around wearing this, which is not her fault. She's a child.
She's a child, yes.
It was a low cut, and this is built for a small child.
Yeah, I know. That's this crazy thing.
It was like a bright red, lacy, and I like lace.
Sure,
like,
sure.
There's like a few outfits that I've had that I've questioned whether or not they're modest enough because it's like lace sleeves. And
I have the same question about some outfits. Yeah.
So like I'm still kind of, and then I'm like, if I'm questioning if it's modest enough, it's probably not modest enough, but well, we all work on it. But this thing, it was like showing her chest, showing her shoulders, so on and so forth. And I'm like, I wouldn't even want a teenager wearing this. Why is this marketed to children?
Exactly.
But she does steal my hijabs now. Like when I see her, I have to bring her a hijab because now she sees mommy wearing it. So
you just get her a little abaya that you can just throw over the clothes that she's wearing. Just put this on, honey. Then it'll be good to go. You can wear whatever you want. Oh my goodness.
It's figuring out how to because my ex is an atheist.
Okay. Sure,
he doesn't like me, quote unquote, pushing religion on them. So I'm like, being nice to animals,
that's not pushing religion. That's just
being nice to animals, taking care of your parents, giving to charity to the poor. Those are all Islamic values. So I don't understand.
Also common human decency.
Yes, common human decency.
I have a child who's an agnostic and he would do all those things.
Exactly.
Because it's common human decency. And I mean, I feel like in Islam, you're a good example and you're not like shoving the religion down anyone's throat, because that would backfire in and of itself. You want to be a good example. And for my 8-year-old, if I ask him, he says, grandma says and dad say I'm Catholic. And I said, well, what do you say you are? And he goes, I'm a Muslim. So
and it's kind of like, if anything, with my children, I probably would not, and I've gotten some pushback on this in the Muslim community, but would I take them to the mosque and everything? Yes, I would take them to the mosque. But specifically what I would probably do is take them to the religious education classes at our local Unitarian church. Because like I said, my family was all very strict Southern Baptist. It drew me away from Abrahamic religions altogether.
Yeah.
Which I think is one of the reasons why it took me so long to actually delve into Islam. So having that strict Southern baptism,
they're pretty strict.
From
no
my
music.
family, I assumed all of Christianity was like that. I assumed all of Islam was like that. So I put a mental block. So I don't want to put, if my daughter's a little rebel, like she's out there, like she's fearless. She's absolutely fearless.
Yeah.
And I know that she's the type that as she gets older, we're going to have issues with, well, I don't want to do it just because my parents said so.
Yes.
So,
there is that. Mine is like that right now at 8. He definitely doesn't. If you tell him to do something, he does not want to do it just because you told him to.
So I want to be able to just like give them the education that I had to fight for growing up.
Yes.
And then let them make do I prefer that they be Muslim? Yes. And they will know that mom will guide them in that. But I want to be able to give them the freedom that I didn't really have growing up.
Sure.
Because with me, like my dad was never in the picture, but he was a holy roller. So he'd be like overdosing, but screaming about how great Jesus is. Very, very confusing.
That would be very confusing to me too. Like,
but my mother, right. I believe that my father my Islam allowed me to forgive my father as well.
Yes.
Because it was like, he was a victim of his addiction. Oglala Lakota, like my grandfather was in AIM, which is the American Indian movement.
Yeah, I do. I'm familiar with that. Yes.
Yeah, it's the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota, and the rates of addiction and generational poverty specifically are very, very high. Islam allowed me to not look at him as this drug addict that abandoned me and look at him more like he was ill. He
was ill. It wasn't illness, and free Leonard Peltier, isn't that,
Like, well, my grandfather, I wasn't going to bring this up because I'm a Muslim and nonviolent, but my grandfather was in the Wounded Knee incident in the 70s.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
So I was my grandfather has had an armed standoff with the U.S. government. Which,
SubhanAllah, no, but that was, an important movement and still is. I mean, the indigenous populations in the United States and Canada, in Central and South America are not treated properly. I have Mayan roots myself.
To Palestine.
Yeah.
I make a lot of comparisons, and it's not the same thing. And I am not saying that by any means whatsoever, but I have made a lot of comparison between the Native American indigenous populations and what's going on in Palestine. I
feel that they're very similar things because, people came for religious reasons. People who came to this country were like, God has destinied us to take over the whole country from ocean to ocean without regards to the fact that there are people here already. And even like I think it's the Declaration of Independence refers to the natives here as merciless savages.
Yeah.
Right. It's in the foundation of our government. And these reservations are supposed to be independent countries. Right. But I mean, the poverty, the lack of infrastructure, there's just so much that is going on there that is not good at all. So, and I have like I said, I have Mayan roots. So I have my mom's side, she's Mayan Indian.
Okay.
And even in Central America and Guatemala, there was a genocide there of people who were indigenous. So, I mean, it's just a problem for a lot of indigenous populations all over the world, Palestinians, Kashmir, various indigenous populations in the United States. And I just don't feel like we're owning up to it as a country. That, you know,
No.
we can say, oh, what we did in the past was wrong, but they're not saying, oh, but what we're doing now is wrong.
Like, it was insulting because the US could, and I'm not saying that one's better or worse than the other, but the US government acknowledged the Armenian genocide, but they won't recognize the genocide that happened in America.
Sure. There were millions of people here. There were millions of people.
It was a whole developed civilization. It wasn't all like, you know, these horrible savages. It was, you know, just not
different cultures, different, you know, and even those people who, you know, the Cherokee, for example, are a good example. What they did was, you know, they assimilated, they became Christian, they wrote their own, put their language into writing, they became educated, they became wealthy. And look what happened, because the you know, the reason they did that was because they're like, oh, if you become like us, then that's great, and we will just like not bother you, right? You can fit in, and everyone's going to be peachy keen. But that's not what happened. They fit in, and they were peachy keen, and then someone got jealous and wanted their land, and then we had the, you know, the whole Trail of Tears.
Yeah,
you know. So, and I feel like a lot of I feel like it's ignored and passed over. Yeah, we kind of hear about it sometime. Oh, that was so sad. But yeah. Anyway, we're going off on a tangent, aren't we?
Yeah, that was like this.
I know it's not about Islam, but you know, I mean, well, Islam does say, you know, we should help people who are oppressed, and so I think that's important for people to know and be aware that oppression isn't just in other countries; it's also here, and we can do something about it. So
like, I think that it was like some parts of America or a third world country wearing a Gucci belt.
Yeah.
So, and I'm like, ooh.
And addiction is rampant too. That's the other problem. Addiction actually changes the physical shape of your brain.
Yes, it does.
It really does. So that's why, you know, you can consider it more of a disease, because it's so hard to break that when your brain structure has actually been physically changed to crave the thing that is hurting you. It's like in the Quran where it says you may, you know, love a thing that is bad for you, but not like a thing that is good for you.
Yeah,
right?
I was
something like that.
I was in the process of signing up to a first school, and I might give them a call because there's no hurt in calling them. But I was in the process of working to study psychology of addiction.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Specifically to do substance abuse counseling and everything. And we need more Muslim counselors. If I'm already,
I think so too. No, I think you're right.
If I'm already passionate about that, why wouldn't I go forward? I'm having issues with another school releasing my transcripts.
Oh no.
Inshallah, that will get taken care of one way or another.
Inshallah, I'll make dua for you.
So, and it's maybe I'll get it done, but Allah's decided right now is not the time.
Alhamdulillah. The time will be right. The time will be right.
I keep forgetting how young I am. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in my 30s now. And I was like, no, I'm still incredibly young.
Yeah, so. You're a baby. You're a baby. So yeah, you know, inshallah, things will work out and you can maybe help other people, especially in the Muslim community, because I don't feel like there's enough Muslim counselors. Like even like recently someone asked on a WhatsApp group that I'm a member of, can you recommend any Muslim counselors?
There's a group, someone sent me the link. There's a group in Chicago that is, and I can send it to you after this.
Yeah, please send it to
me. They do Islamic marriage counseling, premarital counseling, and then crisis counseling. And then it's kind of like even if we don't offer the service, we can try and find it for you.
That's wonderful.
I know it's in Chicago and I can try and find it. I just forget the name of it.
So sort of switching topics, you kind of mentioned your favorite surah of the Quran. Can you tell us again which one that was? Just to kind of...
It's surah, I cannot talk right now.
That's okay.
ADHA, Ada.
Okay.
Or maybe I'm pronouncing that wrong. I always do that. Like my Arabic's actually getting pretty good until I'm around Arabic speakers, and I'm like, marhaba, don't look at me. And like all of the Arabic that I've like learned, like it just goes out the window. I'm gonna do it. It's not. It's dua. D-U-H-A. I don't know why I was.
That's
saying
what I was
that.
thinking. Waduha. Or ad-duha. Ad-duha. Because I love it too, because it begins. I'm gonna do it in English. Walayli ida sajama wadaka rabuka kala. That's my favorite also.
Yeah.
So yes, do it in English.
I'm gonna do it in English. By the morning sunlight and the night when it falls still. Your Lord, O Prophet, has not abandoned you, nor has he become hateful of you. And the next life is certainly far better than this one. And surely your Lord will give so much to you that you will be pleased. Did he not find you as an orphan, then sheltered you? Did he not find you unguided and then guided you? And he found you poor and made you self-sufficient. So as far as the orphan, do not oppress him, nor repulse the beggar, and proclaim the blessing of your Lord, but as the favor of your Lord report. So
Alhamdulillah. Yes, ad-duha. I always call it wad-duha because that's what the first verse is, but it's ad-duha.
Yeah.
I love this. I love that one. It's one of my.
I used to remember it because I was like, it's similar to dua. Remember dua?
Yes, dua.
Dua.
I just was that's one of my questions. And also when you mentioned the verse, I was like, I'm pretty sure I know that surah is ad-duha, but the one that I always get wrong.
I actually have the, and he found you lost and guided you. I have that as a laptop sticker.
I think that's beautiful because, especially for us reverts, I feel like, I was lost and he guided me. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
And that we're not alone. We're not alone. Alhamdulillah. So let me ask you one more question.
Okay.
If you had a billboard that you could put up on the highway somewhere about Islam and this topic, what would you tell the passerbyers and our dear listeners who are listening to this program now?
Wow, that's a hard question.
You can put whatever you want on there.
One, it's not as scary as you think it is. It's not as complicated as you think it is. And the rewards are literally beyond this world. So.
Oh, wow. That would be nice. There are words literally beyond this world from the Quran, right?
Yeah.
That would be kind of deep to put on a billboard. I think it would be meaningful. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, so that's pretty much it. I could ramble on about everything. I'm almost incapable of just having a direct conversation. I ramble a lot, but
well, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. And I could go on and on too. I did one time for 2 hours, so alhamdulillah. So yes, thank you again so much. And so assalamu alaikum.
Yes, alaikum salam.